and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet, and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How are you? How was your weekend?
Pretty good weekend. Just nothing too exciting about it. How about you? What's new?
Good weekend on our end. We went to the Seton YMCA and library on Saturday morning. That was pretty fun. Took our son to the pool, which he loves. And then today we actually went out to the mountains. We hadn't been out toward Canmore since I think January or something. So good to get out for a little hike at Grassy Lakes. But yeah, definitely cut into the soccer watching. I have to admit, I didn't watch much soccer this weekend. I didn't catch either of the main games we're going to talk about today, but still caught the highlights and bits and pieces of other soccer. So excited to do our usual weekend recap.
As you mentioned, this will be our recap of the weekend's matches. We're going to talk about Cavalry FC and their match against Pacific. Calgary Wild played AFC Toronto. We'll also talk USports, Dinos and Cougars men's and women's teams played. And there was also an ACAC all-Calgary derby between the Say Trojans and the Ambrose Lions.
Yeah, lots to delve into. And let's start with the pro level and Cavalry FC.
This is Dan Kuhn, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Cavalry FC played a match on a kind of an unusual time, I think, a Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. Calgary time. They were on Vancouver Island and they played Pacific, and they dropped a couple points, unfortunately.
Yeah, lots of goals in this one. 3-3 draw, and they almost lost it, if not for a very late equalizer in the 94th minute from Dan Klomp. 3-3 is, even though they're on the road, a pretty disappointing result considering the team they're playing against, Pacific, has had a really poor season and is near the bottom of the CPL standings. As I mentioned, I didn't catch the whole game, but based on the highlights, it really doesn't look like Cavalry played well. Gote Natigny seemed to have another strong performance, getting a brace, but apart from that, it looked like Cavalry was really disjointed defensively, and that actually continues a trend in the last couple of away games, which is something that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. brought up in the post-game press conference. Jason, I hadn't even realized this, but on the road, Cavalry has been really leaky defensively as of late.
Yeah, I never connected the dots on this. I see you have the number here, and it's shockingly high.
Yeah, Cavalry have conceded 9 goals in their last 3 away games. So they tied this one 3-3. They lost to Atletico 3-0 just last weekend. And then their trip to York, I guess it was last month, September 5th, they lost that one 3-1. So those were their last road games. And Tommy was very frustrated about that. And he actually said that their defending on the road lately has been piss poor, his words.
Well, here's the thing about their defending. Earlier in the year, there were situations where there would be a bit of a lapse or maybe a gaffe or whatever you want to say. But, goals would happen on mistakes. But generally speaking, defending was relatively solid. And then the whole idea about, bringing Dan Klomp back, we thought it was going to really solidify things. And I think in a lot of ways it has. Like, he's made some key defensive stops. But when it comes right down to it, 9 goals in 3 games is 9 goals in 3 games. So I guess, yeah, I don't really know, like, systemically if there's anything specific, but yeah, that's not a number to be proud of.
Absolutely not. And I was just looking through the numbers, they've conceded 33 goals so far this season. I was curious how that compares historically, and last year and in 2023, Cavalry conceded 27 goals in the regular season. You have to go back to 2022 when they conceded this many goals, and that year they conceded 33. So they've already conceded as many as they have in the entire 2022 season, and they've already conceded 6 more goals than they did in the last 2 seasons. Yeah, obviously, I mean, I like you, I'm not sure exactly where Tommy said it's like the whole team. It's not like the back four. It's not Marco. It's the whole team's defending on the road has just not been good enough. So that's a bit of a concern when you consider that with Cavalry, the best they can finish is 3rd. It means they're going to have to win the North Star Cup on the road. They could play at home this playoff, but they won't be at home in the final if they make it that far. So they do have to figure this out if they want to retain their championship.
Presuming they finish third and then they win that match, they would still have to play 2 more games on the road to win the title, right? So they'd have to play away to whoever loses that 1v2 matchup. And then if they were able to win that one, then they'd have to go to the home of whoever won that game. So yeah, essentially they're going to have to defeat both Ottawa and Forge on the road in order to win the cup if they make it up to that point.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a concern. They have one more road game this season. It's not next week. It's the week after that. But yeah, overall, I mean, a game that Cavalry will be frustrated with for sure. The other thing worth mentioning is Michael Baldissimo was sent off in this one shortly after the hour mark. Cavalry actually conceded 2 goals in like the 6 or 7 minutes after he was sent off. And, I think it was a little bit of a weak call. It was 2 yellows, and the second yellow was for kicking the ball away. He didn't blast the ball away. He just kind of passed it out of bounds after a foul. But you have to be smarter than that, right? Like this is a case where you're on a yellow. Don't even touch the ball after a foul. Just get back in position. Don't pass it. Don't kick it. Just leave it. So a little bit of a screw up from Baldissimo on that play, I think.
Yeah, I think though that when I saw that what he did, like if you look at what's been called as a yellow throughout the year, that was consistent to be a yellow, I think. So yeah, unfortunate and not a smart play, but it definitely rattled the Cavs because they got the Pacific got those 2 goals right away. But anyway, I guess Dan Klomp did save the day with at the death to get a point, and Cavalry still is in control of their own destiny at this point. It's possible that they could clinch third place next week. They can't do it all by themselves. If they can get 4 points in the last 2 matches, it doesn't matter what anyone else does. If they win next week, and if there's losses or draws going with Halifax and York, it's possible they could clinch it next week. But next week's going to be a weird, challenging week, though, because they're going to be missing a bunch of players too.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to talk about that on our Thursday, Friday episode. Yeah, big game against Forge, last home game of the regular season. And then there's still a game after that on the road against Vancouver, which is a team that they've struggled against throughout this season and were knocked out of the Canadian Championship by. So yeah, by no means is third place locked up, and Cavalry will have to smarten up on the road if they really do want to finish this season strong.
Hey y'all, this is Jorian Bauckham, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, let's move over and talk about the Calgary Wild. They had a match on Saturday afternoon at McMahon Stadium against first place AFC Toronto, and it didn't have a lot of meaning to either team in regards to where they're going to finish in the table. But the Wild are playing for pride and playing for their jobs, and some AFC Toronto players are looking to get their chance. So,
yeah, I mean, it was a 2-1 win for Toronto. Goals coming from Kaylee Hunter in front of her friends and family, her 14th goal of the season, which means that she's almost scored as many goals as the entire Calgary Wild. Their second goal, I actually can't remember it if I'm being honest, but I know they went up 2-0 fairly early on, and then Jorian Bauckham scored her second of the season after a long ball forward that was then flicked on. But yeah, as you mentioned, this game really had no implications. Calgary already eliminated from the NSL playoffs. Toronto had already clinched first place. I actually thought Toronto, the team that they lined up, had more starters than I kind of thought they would. But despite that, they still started pretty strong in this game and took a 2-0 lead pretty early on.
From what I saw in this match, and I did watch most of it, that it just seemed like you could just tell Toronto has more talent, and they're a team playing on a higher level. So even though they had they had their backup keeper in, and they had a couple other backup players, you're right, they still had a fair number of starters, but they definitely look like they've really got their act together going into the playoffs. And I think anyone would be kind of foolish to bet against them at this point. They just seem like they're playing at a different level, even when they're not playing their first choice lineup.
Yeah, and they saw out this game after a red card shortly after the hour mark, which to be honest, I don't think it was a red card. I think this was very accidental on the part of Kyla Novak. She did foul Tegan Stewart, but then she did not see that she was still down, and then she kind of stumbled over her and kicked her in the face, from what I could tell, but completely accidental from my vantage point anyway. But even down a woman, Toronto was able to shore up their defense and see out the result. So yeah, I like you said, I would not bet against AFC Toronto lifting the Diana B. Matheson Cup in a couple of weeks.
Hi guys, this is Kareem Bashir Bey. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. Have a great day.
Let's talk about USports. A bunch of matches in Calgary this weekend. Both the Cougars and the Dinos had 2 home games for the men and for the women. And, after some weekends where there were a lot of W's, this weekend wasn't quite as successful as some of those previous weekends.
Yeah, it feels like every weekend we've been doing these recaps and saying, strong weekend for the Calgary teams. And I think for the first time in a while, we're going to have to kind of say the reverse of that. It was a pretty poor weekend for a couple of teams that have gotten used to winning this fall. So let's start with the Dinos men. They were playing the Saskatchewan Huskies at the Calgary Soccer Center, conceded an early penalty, and that was the only goal in this one. Saskatchewan winning 1-0. And then across town, MRU was playing the Lethbridge Pronghorns, who I think, the Cougars would go into this one as the favorites, but Lethbridge won 3-0. So pretty dominant performance from them. And a former podcast guest got on the score sheet.
Yeah, Kareem Bashir Bey scored for the Pronghorns. I think the Pronghorns, they're a decent enough side, I think. But yeah, when you look at the Cougars ranked 10th nationally and I know I went to go check the score on Saturday afternoon and it was 2-0 right off the bat. And so they obviously had a really strong game. So, kudos to the Pronghorns. But the Huskies beating the Dinos, the Huskies are not considered to be a very strong team in Canada West. So I think that one probably hurt a fair bit.
Yeah. So the next day, the Cougars did rebound from that disappointing loss. They beat the Huskies 3-1. With goals coming from Channon Chanda, Jonathan Walter, and Luca Patek. But the Dinos faltered as well, or maybe it was just a really strong weekend for Lethbridge. This one was a 1-1 draw, the Pronghorns, at McMahon Stadium.
Yeah, Milan Ponjevic got the goal for the Dinos. So the Cougars have definitely jumped up and have even a little bit of space between themselves and the Dinos. So in the table, Cougars are first, Dinos are second. And it's not the greatest time of year to be having a slump, but the Dinos are really... they've really been struggling here a bit. This upcoming weekend, there are no matches. It's Thanksgiving weekend. So maybe a week off and a turkey dinner or something like that will maybe give them a chance to reset before their last couple games of the year.
For sure. Now, on the women's side, we did see the Dinos' dominance continue with a 4-point weekend, but no goals conceded. So on Saturday, the Dinos played Saskatchewan Huskies at the Calgary Soccer Center. Goalless draw, not much to speak about. But the next day, they hosted Regina at McMahon Stadium, and they won 2-0. Goals coming from McKenna Walker and Sophia DiGiacomo.
Overall, a pretty decent weekend for them. But yeah, overall, they're still in first place.
And unbeaten still, 10 wins and 2 draws.
Yeah, that's true. When it comes to Cougars, they played the same 2 teams. They started out on Saturday playing Regina and in the all Cougars matchup. And just realized in my notes, I put Cougars win 3-0. Could be either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew who you meant.
Yeah, no, me too. But I'm just reading it now and I'm like, wait, what? For the Cougars faced Regina in the all Cougars matchup and they won 3-0 on Saturday with 3 goals from Tamara Jurczyk. And then they faced Saskatchewan Huskies on Sunday, and the Huskies won 2-0. And former Calgary Blizzard player Alyssa Dagnoni scored for the Huskies.
Yeah, and speaking of Tamara Jurczyk, and before that, with her hat trick, she now leads Canada West scoring race with 9 goals on the season. So, yeah, she's a name we've seen, pop up pretty much every weekend on the score sheet, and she got singled out by their captain, Bella Chirico, in our last episode. But yeah, great season from Tamara so far. But yeah, a little bit of a disappointment to give up a 2-0 loss on Sunday. The Dinos are still unbeaten, top of the table, 10 wins and 2 draws. They're guaranteed to finish at least second. Cougars have slipped a little bit behind them, 9 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. Can still finish first mathematically, but could also fall as low as fourth, depending on how the rest of the season shakes up and how McEwen or Saskatchewan do in their last rounds of games.
Okay, to wrap things up, we're going to talk about the ACAC and the State Trojans and the Ambrose Lions in the still unnamed Calgary ACAC derby. It happened on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, on the men's side, pretty close game overall. Sate won 3-1. Esrom Johannes scored twice for Sate, and Anel Correa Hodelen scored the other one. And on the women's side, Sate dominated as per usual, 7-0 win, with a couple of players getting braces, Amy Fallows and Nikki Charlton. The other goals coming from former podcast guest Megan Weeb, as well as Yuko Hamada and Nicole Noble.
Looking at the table in the ACAC, in the women's division, Sate is in first place, 9 wins, no losses. They've got 3 more matches left on their schedule. They've clinched a playoff spot. They can finish no lower than second, but realistically speaking, the only way Red Deer is going to catch them is if Red Deer pretty much wins all their games and State loses all theirs. So I don't think that's terribly likely. And on the men's side, State is technically tied with Medicine Hat with 18 points at the top of the South, but Medicine Hat still has a game in hand.
Yeah, but State has also, on the men's side, clinched a playoff spot. Pretty crazy that only the top 2 teams in the division make it into the postseason.
It is. It's just that it's a relatively short playoff because don't they really do it over that weekend? They do it like on a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday, I think, pretty much, if I remember right.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is Kendall Showers, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So we don't usually do this in our weekend recap, but we wanted to give shout outs to 2 recent podcast guests. I guess one isn't that recent, but they both scored for their respective teams in Europe this past weekend. First one we can mention on Friday night, Bori Falei scored for KF Tirana in a 3-0 win over Partizani, which is their big rival. This is a really big game in Albanian football. So congrats to him for getting, I think, his first goal for the club.
Remember when we interviewed him where we started talking about the match against Partizani and about how he said that if they lose that match that you can't go out to buy groceries or something like that? Wasn't that, or can't go for a walk the next day or something like that?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said you lose that game, you kind of have to hole up in your apartment until the fans are a little less pissed off.
So they won and he scored. So I have a feeling that he's over the weekend he's been walking down the streets of Tirana and he's probably been getting the kudos left and right. So
yeah, gotten some random high fives on the street, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. The other person we wanted to mention was a former 2-time podcast guest, Kendall Showers. She's playing in Greece for her second season. She's playing with a team called Santa. It's in Athens, and they won 3-0 today, and she scored a brace. So kudos to her. And after not scoring last year in the half season she played, she hasn't taken that much time to open her account this year.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story. Love to see it. Hopefully she gets a couple more this season. Love to see these posts continue. Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this episode downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other ways to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links to buy my book, Here Come the Cavalry, which is all about the history of professional soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or a comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media through X, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is @YYCSoccer403. Thanks for listening.